Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Force of Will Starter Deck Spotlight, this time featuring Machina, the Machine Lord. Machina is the ruler of the walled city of Leginus. His deck focuses on a rushdown tactic, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, then bringing all his cannons to bear. Let's take a look at what this mechanical overlord has in store.
Machina's deck starts with the ruler, Machina the Machine Lord. For X, you can search your main deck for an addition or resonator with a total cost of X or less, but it has to have no attribute, so it can't be attributed to fire, wind, etc. You put it in your hand and then shuffle your main deck, but you can only use it once per turn. If you pay 4 and use his Judgment ability, he flips over to his J-Ruler side. Machina, the Mechanical Emperor. When it enters the field, you can put up to 3 resonators or additions with no attribute from your hand into the field immediately. You can banish a resonator with no attribute to prevent all damage that would be dealt to Machina during this turn. His God's Art for 3 is Invincible Soldiers, using resonators with no attribute that you control cannot be destroyed this turn. Onto our resonators, we get 4 copies of Clockwork Soldiers, a 300/300 1-drop with target attack. You can pay 1 to give it plus 200 attack until the end of the turn, and at the end of the turn you have to banish it. Next, we have 4 copies of Mechanical Sprite, a 300/300 1-drop. You can pay 1 to give it flying. Next resonator in the deck is Clockwork Scout Plane. We get 4 copies of this. It's a 500/500 2-drop with flying. Next, we get 4 copies of Power Supply Team, a 500/500 3-drop. When you banish this card, you can recover another target resonator, whether it be yours or your opponent's. Next, we have Imitation Dragon, a 1000/1000 with flying for the cost of 4, but when this card is dealt any damage, it's destroyed. Next, we get onto the fire attribute resonators of this deck, starting with Sylvia's Clansmate. It's a 400/400 2-drop with flying. When you banish this card, you can pay 1 less for any judgment abilities on your ruler, and you can pay 1 fire and give it plus 100/+0 until the end of the turn. The last resonator we have in the deck is Snow White, the Valkyrie of Passion, a 500/700 3-drop with swiftness and first strike. Whenever Snow White attacks, you put a passion counter on it, and when it attacks again, you can deal 300 damage to a target resonator for each passion counter on it. If you do, you have to remove all of them, but you don't have to use this ability if you don't want to. Onto our spells, we start with March of the Machine Lord. We get 4 copies of this. It's a 5-drop spell, but it gets cheaper for each resonator you control with no attribute. It gives all of your resonators with no attribute plus 300/300 and swiftness until the end of the turn. Lastly, we have 4 copies of Flame King Shout. It's a 3-cost spell that deals 400 damage to each resonator your opponent controls. Then you can play a resonator with a fire attribute of 3 or less from your hand, and it gains swiftness until the end of the turn. Onto Machina's addition, we get 2 copies of Leginus, the Mechanical City. It's a 2-cost addition that gives all of your machines plus 200/200. You can pay 2 and rest Leginus to steal flying, first strike, pierce, or target attack until the end of the turn from a target resonator. If you do so, you can give it to a different resonator. Finally, we have Machina's Regalia, Maribel the Steel Doll. This Regalia acts as extra defense for your J-Ruler by preventing 200 damage if it's ever dealt damage. At the cost of 5, you can turn Maribel the Steel Doll into a 1000/1000 machine resonator until the end of the turn. It's still technically Regalia, but if your J-Ruler is Machina the Machine Lord or Machina the Mechanical Emperor, you pay 2 less for this ability. At the cost of 1 and resting Maribel, you can banish this card and destroy another target Regalia. Lastly, we get 10 copies of the Fire Magic Stones. Machina's deck focuses pretty heavily on machines, specifically those with no attributes. Many of his cards combo off each other pretty well. For instance, Machina's J-Ruler ability adds 3 resonators onto the field, and March of the Machines gives them all swiftness, allowing you to quickly rush down opponents. If you'd like to see more Force of Will content, including other starter deck spotlights and matches, stay tuned to Trading Post Games, and please click some of the annotations. Happy gaming.